Hey guys, today I decided to have something unusual for the video, and we're gonna discuss top 3 units that are great as Black Templars and not that great with most other chapters, and why you might want to have them in your list. So without further ado, let's dive right in. And firstly, we're going to talk about the infamous Invictor Tactical Warsuit. It costs 160 points and is in the Elites slot. So main problem I had with Invictors for years, and I've talked about that in multiple videos on my channel, is that they are too fragile for their points cost, and often they don't even get a chance to use their most, useful ability they have, which is their forward deploy. And they need some defensive help to actually be able to make their points back. Because actually the idea itself is quite nice, being able to throw a big vehicle with a lot of melee potential and also some shooting potential into your opponent's face turn 1. That's quite scary, and that's why they did not make Invictor survivable in the first place, because they didn't want to make him too scary. But I think Games Workshop have gone a step too far in this direction, and he actually needs some help. So the Super Doctrine the Black Templars have, their Oath, is going to help with that a lot. So the 5-up invulnerable save being the best thing about that. So you're going to have some actual decent save against Malta AP4 weapons in melee or in shooting, which is going to help massively. And also you're going to get a baby transhuman, so you cannot be wounded on 2s. It's not often where something that's a T6 can be wounded on 2s, but sometimes that does happen, and you're going to be very glad when it does, and when your opponent rolls a bunch of 2s and you're actually transhuman against those 2s. I'll be frank with you, the 5-up invulnerable and baby transhuman are not enough to make Invictor perfect. They're just barely enough to make him worth your while if you actually have that niche in your list not filled up already. So yeah, I think having 2 of these in your army might be a good addition, because yes, you will be spending around 320 points on them too, but you will get a lot of bang for your buck. Mostly because your opponent will always go for them first, and it will take some work to finish those 2 off, especially considering that you have the 5-up shrug against mortal with them, so some psychic heavy armies will not be able to get rid of them too easily. And you also have some stratagem synergy with them also. So the 1 CP Tenacious Assault allows you to prevent falling back on the 4+ for infantry and beast units. So if you have in the first turn, as you probably want to, charged your opponent's lines and maybe tagged an important character or an important infantry unit who wants to fall back and shoot, on a 4+, you may prevent them from falling back. And that not only stops them from shooting, but also stops your opponent's other units from shooting your Invictor. So a very good stratagem, and I'm glad that it's not locked into core units or infantry units only. And the second one is the well-known 1 command point Abhor the Witch, which is a 4+ deny within 24 inches. Why it's good on the Invictor is because it's already forward deployed. It's already in the enemy lines, or at least in the center of the battlefield. So you're gonna have a very good range on the denies, and it'll be hard for your opponent to zone out of your stratagem. So yeah, if you use Invictors carefully and position them behind line of sight blocking terrain, which usually can be found on most tabletop setups, terrain setups, in clubs or in tournaments. So if you position them behind those line of sight blocking terrain, so if your opponent goes first, they cannot immediately shoot your Invictors off the board. And then in your first turn, you move out with your 10-inch move, which is not bad, and try to roll that charge, and you have that reroll from the Black Templars chapter tactics. So again, you are being helped there slightly. So you have a good chance of charging in your first turn and making life harder for your opponent, whilst all of your other units are advancing forward, shooting, and etc. Next unit I'm going to discuss with you are the Aggressors. They cost 240 points for a unit of 6 with Flamers, and they occupy the Elites slot. There are several reasons why Black Templars make them much better. First of all, the most obvious one is the 5-up invulnerable save gives them a substantial level of survivability compared to just having Armor of Contempt. So obviously it's it's mostly against the AP4 or AP5 attacks, which is sometimes occurring in the game. And also the baby transhuman is great because even when you are toughness 5, there are things in the game that actually can wound you on 2+. The aggressors are 3 wounds each, so it's not a bad idea to actually shoot them with anti-tank damage 3 high strength like strength 10 or strength 12 weapons. The litany of divine protection for the 5-up shrug can also be very helpful for them, and they're not a bad target for it, unless you have a 10-man Terminator squad in your army as well. The Black Templar chapter tactic is great for them because they do want to advance and have that advance as big as possible, and they also want to have the charge reroll when the time to charge comes. And the fact that they can carry those flamers is awesome because you can first advance like 5 or 6 inches forward and then shoot those flamers with no penalties to hit. And I would probably myself run them with flamers just because of that, the fact that you can shoot after advancing with no penalties, and the Overwatch, obviously. 5-up shrug against mortal wounds is awesome for them because they have 3 wounds each, and they would be a perfect target for something like a Smite Machine, Thousand Suns Exalted Sorcerer, and 5-up shrug is very helpful against that. They have great stratagem synergy. First of all is the 1 command point Devout Push, great strat for an extra 3-inch move or a pile-in, depending on which phase you are in, and anything that can help the aggressors move a bit faster is awesome because they have a 5-inch move only. 1 command point Strength of Conviction for a tactical application of OPSEC, so they are core unit, so they can utilize the Strength of Conviction to turn on the OPSEC at the start of your command phase, which allows you to unexpectedly turn or flip an objective that your opponent thought is theirs, because generally aggressors don't have OPSEC, and if someone asks you if they have OPSEC at the start of the game, you can say no, but they actually have an ability to turn it on. I don't recommend to cover that from your opponent. It would be a noble thing probably to let the opponent know that you have such an ability, but I leave that up to your preference. 1 command point Emperor's Will for the bolter option of aggressors if you want to advance them and fire with no penalties and actually be able to shoot. I think they are assault anyway, so that would not be a problem for them, but the -1 to hit would be, so it's a good stratagem. However, as I said, I would recommend to run them with flamers just because of the Overwatch protection and no reason to spend extra command point on the Emperor's Will. 2 command point Heretic Spire for the blast ability on the flamers, so if you are going to shoot at a unit of 6 or more models, you get minimum 3 shots for each flamer, I think, and if you are firing at a big unit of 11 plus models, you get max shots on your flamers. That's just incredible. If you are firing at a Termagant unit, you can clear a whole 20 or 30 Termagant blob in one shooting phase from one squad. And if we're talking about relic upgrades, and I remind those of you who are not familiar with Black Templars, they have relics like everyone else, but they also have relic upgrades, which is their version of the points upgrade. So it's not an actual relic you buy for command points, it's an upgrade you buy for points. So for 15 points you can upgrade a unit with Crux Obsidian, so one model can have -1 damage, which would increase the squad's survivability against damage 3 threats considerably until that model eventually dies off, but you can still resurrect him with an apothecary, which you probably want to have an apothecary in your Black Templars army anyway. Or full reroll to hit wound from the Sigismund Seal, which costs 20 points. A very good upgrade, can't say anything bad about it. It's just a bit pricey and it only works in melee. So if you expect those aggressors to be up against a very firm target sooner than they actually die, I can recommend that as well. Especially considering that they have -1 to hit on those fists. And the last unit we're going to talk about today is the Assault Squad. They cost 90 points for the squad of 5 and they are in the fast attack slot. The Assault Squad isn't a bad option for capturing objectives and board control in other chapters, but the fact that they receive both the baby transhuman, which is just incredible for their toughness 4, it's the best thing for toughness 3, very good for toughness 4, and well, good or okay depending on which army you come up against for toughness 5, 6, and 7. So very, very good for them. And the 5-up invulnerable save, again, wonderful. Plus, the re-rolling advances for them is so critical because their main goal is to actually reach those faraway objectives, to stand on them until whatever the opponent shoots or charges them off them, or you decide to move the Assault Squad someplace else. I love the fact that they are so dirt cheap. They are a full 5-man Space Marine squad under 100 points, 90 points with jump packs. That's amazing. Obviously, they are not great in combat with just 1 attack each, or 2 attacks on the charge, or 3 with the chainsword. That's nothing to write home about, but they are not there to fight. They are there to be fast, well, relatively durable as Space Marines go, and stand on the objective and control the board. For the stratagems, their utility is absolutely transformed by the stratagem strength of conviction, because if someone charges them, say, I don't know, a troops unit, and in the fight these guys actually manage to crawl on top of the other units in terms of the count, model count, you can actually flip an objective in your command phase by using the strength of conviction stratagem to give this unit of assault marines OPSEC. That's amazing. It will save you 4 or sometimes even more points for primaries, or some points for your secondaries a lot of times. So remember the stratagem and use it with assault squads whenever you feel necessary. I wouldn't recommend buying any war gear for them, and I wouldn't bother buying the relic upgrades for them either, because their purpose is to stay cheap and to do the things that we've already discussed. So they are a very good unit, not really popular nowadays, I don't think so, but in the Black Templars army, I think you are bound to have 1 or better 2 in your fast attack slot, especially considering the fact they are not occupying the overly encumbered elite slot. You will not have that big of a problem nowadays with when the Arcs of Omen detachment comes out. You will have more real estate there, but still you don't want to occupy too many elite slots with units that are mostly utilitarian in purpose. So these are my top 3 unusual Black Templars units. Let me know in the comment section below which units you think work even better as Black Templars compared to other chapters. I would love to hear your opinions on that, because I might have missed something that is even better transformed by the Black Templars. And I'll see you next time.